and happy Halloween. We are now on October the 31st, so I thought I would come on here and give you my October wrap up. I managed to finish 8 books this month, so that's quite good for me. I'm quite impressed actually. But there's a whole wide range of ratings. It goes from 2.5 up to 5. So I'm going to start with the one which I gave 2.5, work my way up so that we finish the video on a high. So first of all, 2.5 stars. This is probably going to come as a surprise because it's usually highly rated. It's quite overhyped in my opinion. And there is a Netflix series as well, which everyone raves about. So yeah, it's You by Caroline Kepnes, and it's basically following Joe Goldberg, who's meant to be this handsome, charming bookseller, and Genevieve Beck kind of walks into a store one day, and he decides that this Genevieve has to be his girlfriend, and so he starts to stalk her online. That's when it starts. He kind of creates this meeting, which he thinks is by chance, but obviously he's set it all up. And he also charms her into being in a relationship with him somehow. And it's very much a psychological thriller. It's very much about stalking. It's creepy because it could happen to any one of us. So there is that element of creepiness to it. The reason why I just didn't gel with it and I only gave it 2.5 stars is it's down to me really. Nothing to do with the author and the writing as such. It's purely me. So I kind of just felt very uncomfortable the whole time through this book, and I know that that's what the author is trying to do, but for me I think it was just too much. So I ended up only giving it 2.5 stars, which I'm surprised about because this was one of the books, my 23 books of 2023 to read this year, and I had high hopes for it because I'd heard such good things about it. But I kind of feel like there was just some parts of this story that was just a bit too much for me, and I just could not get on with it really. So yeah, it was 2.5, but I would still suggest other people to read it because obviously it is highly rated and a lot of people do really enjoy this book and the TV series. So I think it's just more about me and not the book as such. And then we have a 3-star read, which is Locusts by Guiane Smith. So I finished this today. Now this is probably the most scariest of the books on this list. It absolutely is horrifying and terrifying me. So fun fact, I hate cockroaches, locusts, like the idea of locusts, I absolutely hate it. Obviously we don't get them in England, but you hear about them in America, and I think there's kind of like a horror story about them anyway. And yeah, I kind of feel like this book just creeped me out so much. So not only are they going around England basically taking all the crops and things like that, but also they're eating people and they're killing people and they're causing deaths of actual people, which is absolutely terrifying. And you kind of see this whole, like the whole of England going into this state of emergency, and all from these locusts, but it's absolutely horrifying. It's terrifying, and it really creeped me out. So yeah, if you're looking for proper creepy horror type of book, then this is probably it. It was written in the 1970s, so the relationships, you could kind of tell is from like the 70s. The thing that I did not get on with this book was the characters. Like none of the characters are likable, so you don't really care about them. You're following Alan and his wife, and they basically move to this rural place in Shropshire to run a farm, and they've got their son with them. And yeah, it's you start to see the locusts, you know, the horror story part of it with the locusts starts coming about, and you see that they're obviously killing people, but the whole time the father and the husband, so Alan, is constantly thinking about sleeping with his neighbour. And I just found a lot of the like the sex scenes and just the way he describes how it's described with how he's aroused and stuff like that, it kind of just gave me the ick and was not great in the slightest. So yeah, so with that and the characters just not being likable anyway, I couldn't really give this any higher rating. But yeah, it was still creepy, and if you like that kind of horror, then I would definitely recommend this. And then we have a 3.5, and that was The Book of Accidents by Chuck Wendig. So this, I had high hopes for it, so I'm a bit disappointed that it was only a 3.5 in my opinion, but it's still a fairly enjoyable read. I would still recommend it in like some way. So the reason why I didn't rate it any higher was because there was a lot of moments in this book where it kind of felt like it was dragging. It's very slow paced. So you're basically following Nathan and Maddie, so they're married, and they move to this house which was Nathan's childhood home, and he's estranged from his father because his father abused him as a child. So there is a lot of child abuse in this as well, by the way, if that's a trigger for you. And they've moved to this house because the father has died, and they've taken their son Ollie. Now Ollie kind of has, it's almost like a, I don't know if it's like a power that he has, but he kind of sees hurt and pain on people. So he'll look at someone and it's like they've got this aura around them, and he can see the pain. And so he's very sensitive. So he is in therapy, and he basically makes friends with this guy called Jake, who's about his age. And obviously the family meet this Jake, and there's something very sinister about him. And he starts to persuade him to go to this area in near that to there where they're living. I think it's called Ramble Rocks, and it's just basically an outcrop area of like rocky caves, that type of thing. And what he kind of shows him a bit of magic from this book, and yeah, there's something very odd and paranormal and like a bit of magic and supernatural sort of stuff going on with this Jake. And the area that he takes Ollie to ends up being like a portal into other worlds, and they're like parallel worlds to this one that Ollie lives in. And they've got like parallel characters of Ollie and things like that. It's a very bizarre concept, but very good concept at the same time. And I did enjoy that side of things. I did like the fact that there's these parallel worlds, that there's magic involved. There was a lot of creepiness in this, so I would definitely recommend it. Just for me, I kind of felt like it dragged quite a bit in the middle part, so hence why I just could not give it a higher rating. But yeah, I would still recommend this. I did think it was quite good. I liked the whole idea of parallel worlds and that sort of thing, and this place being a portal. Yeah, and it was creepy, and I didn't like this Jake guy. He was very sinister. So there we go. Then we've got two books that were 4 stars. So the first one is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. This one, so this is obviously the author of Gone Girl, which I absolutely love Gone Girl. So I think this was like the first book that she wrote. This one follows Camille Preaker, and she's a reporter. And she basically goes back to her hometown, and she has to go and stay with her mum for a bit. And she doesn't get on with her mum at all. And she has to go and stay there to do a report on 2 girls that have been killed in the town. So her editor has sent her back to her hometown to basically do this report, this journalistic report. And so, yeah, you would basically meet her 13-year-old half-sister. Is it half-sister? Yeah. So 13-year-old half-sister who's just not a very nice kid in the slightest. And she's kind of got this hold over the town as well. And years prior to this, Camille's own sister had been killed. And as she's working with the police to find out what's happened to these 2 girls recently, she starts to see a connection with her sister's death. And it starts to become a bit of a psychological puzzle, and you kind of see her trying to piece everything together and try and work out what the connection is. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I did feel like it was quite creepy as well, and like it was very much a psychological thriller in a way. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that. And then the other book that I gave 4 stars to was Rosemary's Baby. So I had high hopes for this. I thought it was going to be a 5-star read because obviously everyone recommends it. It's always on the recommendation list for this time of year. So I thought I was going to give this like 5 stars. So I'm quite disappointed that it didn't meet my high expectations, but it was still a good read. I would still definitely recommend it. This one's probably more like cult and satanic, so nothing like really spiritual or anything like that, or ghosts and ghoulies, But this one follows Rosemary and Guy, and they move to this high-end apartment, like in this really nice apartment building. So they move there and they meet their neighbours, who are Roman and Minnie. And when Rosemary finds out that she's pregnant, she starts to realise that these neighbours are constantly coming around. They're constantly trying to make sure that Rosemary's okay, and she starts to be a bit suspect as to why they seem to be so interested in her and the baby. And she starts to then figure things out, and she realises that there's probably an ulterior motive to them coming around constantly and trying to check on her. The thing that stopped me from making this a 5-star read for me is probably because Rosemary, it takes her so long to start figuring things out that realistically you would have started noticing a lot earlier on. So that's, yeah. But I still enjoyed the read. It was very tense. I was constantly trying to read on to see what actually happens and what she was going to do about it when she starts realising what they were doing. And the ending to this, I just, was not satisfied with the ending as well. That's why I didn't make 5 stars. I wasn't keen on the ending, really, at all. So, but I would still recommend it, though. I would still recommend it. And then we've got a 4.5 star read. But although it's 4.5 and I've got 2 books at 5 stars, I still think this one was definitely my favourite book of the month. And it's The Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. And the only reason why I did get 5 stars was because there was moments in the halfway mark where I kind of felt like it was dragging a bit. But other than that, I absolutely loved it. So you've got this whole world. It's set in Oxford at the beginning, and then it moves over to New York. So you've got this whole world where you've got humans living in the world, and they have no idea that there's creatures everywhere. So we've got demons, we've got vampires, we've got witches. And I find that like amazing anyway. And then you've got this relationship happening between a witch and a vampire. And in this world, the creatures aren't allowed to be with like a different creature to them. So the witches have to be with witches. The vampires have to be with the vampires. So it's basically frowned upon, this relationship. And there's people high up in it's almost like a government thing that don't want them to be together. And at the same time, there is this manuscript which is in the Bodleian Library in Oxford, and it basically tells the lives of how vampires and witches and demons came about. And so all of them are after this manuscript. And Diana, who is our main witch, seems to be the only person who can call this manuscript. So she has a lot of people after her as well, and the vampire is there trying to protect her. You see a very tense, it's very action driven as well, and I don't know, I just absolutely loved it. And the writing is stunning as well, and I loved all the characters, and of course I loved the setting. To go from Oxford and then to New York, it was absolutely superb. And I loved all the autumn vibes that come from this book as well. So it's the first in a trilogy, so I'm definitely going to be reading the rest of the trilogy, and I would definitely recommend this book. And then we've got 2 5-star read books. These became 5-star reads for different reasons. They're completely different from one another. But at the time, I was obviously doing a readathon last weekend, a 36-hour readathon. So I wanted books that were fast-paced, perfect for this time of year. So these 2 definitely gave me that. And I enjoyed both of them for different reasons. So the first one was The Hunted by Gabriel Bonrosa. And this is more like a slasher type book. And there's a lot of vibes of Deliverance in this as well. I would definitely recommend it because of how tense it was. It really was tense. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. Very much so. So basically you're following Frank, and it's set in the outbacks of Australia, and he basically owns this service station which is on this very unused highway, and his granddaughter Addie is staying with him. And whilst they're in the service station, a couple turn up. That is the cats fighting, as per usual. So when this couple turns up, so you've got the 4 of them in the service station, and they're all just milling about, and this woman comes flying into the service station in this beaten up truck. She jumps out, she's covered in blood, and she basically collapses unconscious. So they've got this woman on their hands, and they're like, oh, we need to help her. But then the people that have caused these injuries to this woman, they are still after her. So they obviously get a turn up at the service station, and you kind of see like this war break out between the people that are inside the service station and then all of these blokes that are outside waiting to get, I think her name's Maggie. So yeah, it's very tense. And also the people that are after her as well, it's this small town, and all of the people in this small town, they basically hunt other humans and they're cannibals and all of that sort of thing. So it's quite sadistic as well. So yeah, there is, I'm getting distracted by the cats, I do apologise. Yes, there is that in this book. It's very much a good slasher. If you love your slasher films, then you'll love this. So I've really enjoyed it. And then the last book was a 5-star. This one was definitely ghosts. This is another isolated setting as well, but in the Arctic. So you follow the perspective of Jack, and it's done by his journal. So he's obviously done this journal, and we're basically reading his journal entries to find out what happened to him on this Arctic expedition. He ends up being by himself. And oh no, Leo. So he ends up being by himself, and so yeah, anyway, he ends up by, I do apologise for that. So he ends up by himself. It's set in London 1937. He then goes off on this Arctic expedition. He is isolated in this very derelict place, and he has to basically keep himself alive, because when it gets to darkness, and there's like 4 months of darkness, he ends up finding out that there's sinister things wandering around in the dark after him, and it's very tense. Yeah, it's very well done though, so I would definitely recommend this. It did definitely creep me out a lot, and it was perfect for this time of year as well. So yeah, another one that I would highly recommend. So it was 8 books in total, obviously go from 2.5 up to 5 stars. I would recommend them all anyway, even with You by Caroline Kepnes, because obviously so many people have recommended this book, and so many people seem to enjoy it. I think it was just more about me personally as to why I didn't rate it any higher than 2.5. But yeah, it was a good range of books this month, and I'm really pleased with how the reading turned out this month as well. So hopefully there's some books on here as well that you would be interested in reading and would like to try out as well. So, but for now, thank you for watching, and that was my October wrap up, and I'll be back soon with like a November TBR. I want to go down the cozy mystery route next. So until next time, bye.